All right, we've just received in the tape of this is, again, how this works. I mentioned at the show just a short time ago, the dignified transfer took place for U.S. Army Sergeant Benjamin Pennington. He is the 7th U.S. service member to die in combat in this nation's ongoing war with Iran. The way these things go is that we do not bring you these events when they happen live, these dignified transfers at Dover, but we can turn them around very quickly after they've happened as soon as we get in that tape. Sergeant Pennington died yesterday after succumbing to injuries after an attack on the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia just over a week ago. Vice President J.D. Vance was at Dover to observe tonight's dignified transfer and also to meet with Sergeant Pennington's family. We're told that Vice President Vance was joined by the Defense Secretary and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And I should just tell you, we're going to show you this now, but as is customary, the video that we have of this solemn event is silent. There is no audio. That is on purpose. But we've just gotten this in. Let's turn to it now. Watch. We're watching right now the dignified transfer of the remains of Sergeant Benjamin Pennington, 26-year-old sergeant from the 1st Space Battalion, 1st Space Brigade, based at Fort Carson, Colorado. He's from Glendale, Kentucky. You see the transfer case was moved into that transfer vehicle as they now close it after the arrival there at Dover Air Base. You also saw civilian officials, the Vice President and the Defense Secretary there, as well as the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Joining us now is retired U.S. Army Colonel Jack Jacobs. He is a recipient of the Medal of Honor for his service during the Vietnam War. Colonel Jacobs, can you just talk to us a little bit about what we're seeing and why this happens the way it does at Dover?
Well, it didn't used to happen. When we had lots and lots of casualties during the war in Vietnam, we lost in some weeks 1,000 troops. It didn't happen. And at that time, we had a draft. This was not long after the end of the Second World War, when we had 19 million people in uniform. And everybody knew somebody who had served. Every household had made a contribution to the defense of the country. And then we decided that we were going to have a volunteer force. We weren't going to have a draft. And the result of that is that most Americans do not know anybody in uniform. And when the military instrument of power is used and people are killed, this ceremony, and I think the Defense Department would say it's not a ceremony, but it's a ceremony, is vitally important for the American public to see it. Because in the past, we knew what the cost was, and now we don't, because we don't know anybody in uniform, but this is the cost of the use of the military instrument.
I also remember in the post 9/11 wars, significant controversy and political debate over the then George W. Bush administration wanting to make sure that there was no media coverage, that there were no cameras at events like this, at these solemn events at Dover, even as the family may have been there, even as some public officials may have been there. They did not want the public to see these things. That is a debate that I think was soundly settled in favor of people believing there ought to be public access, such as it is, to these events. But it is limited. As you can tell here from this footage that we have got, this is not live. This happened just moments ago. We don't take this footage live. We only take it on a slight delay. Also, we don't air any audio from these ceremonies. It's very tightly constrained so that we can see it, but are also held a little bit at a remove. Do you think those kinds of restrictions are appropriate given the sort of purpose of us being able to see this that you were just describing?
Well, it's very solemn, and maybe not having audio is a worthwhile thing to do. You know, you mentioned the war in Iraq, and we been in the Middle East for a long, long time fighting. And it's interesting to note that at the beginning of the war, Secretary Rumsfeld argued strenuously that we should not have any press coverage at all of what was happening in the Middle East. And I think it was Tory Clark, his press advisor, his communications advisor, I think that's who it was at the time, who argued that we needed to have that. And the result was that we wound up with press embedded with units. And the argument was it's vitally important that the American public see what is done in their name. To be sure, we need to do whatever we can do in order to protect the United States, our allies, our interests everywhere around the world. But whatever is done to do that, it's important that the American public always be informed of what it takes to get it done, whether or not it's getting done, and when it's over, when it is over, that we've accomplished our objectives or have not accomplished our objectives. So full and complete disclosure is vitally important for the health of the Republic. But also, it's important for the kids who are out there fighting. It's important that the public knows who's out there, what they're doing, and the efforts in service and sacrifice that are made on their behalf, Rachel.
Yeah, made very, very real by these images we've just had tonight. Colonel Jack, it is always an honor to have you with us whenever you can have time to be here, especially on a night like this. I appreciate you being here, sir.
Thanks for having me on the program.
All right, that dignified transfer, again, for Sergeant Benjamin N. Pennington, 26 years old, of Glendale, Kentucky.